Let's look at some of the features of Jamasize and learn how to use the software to calculate distance. When you launch your software, it will load whatever stations you've chosen in the past. If you've had the software off for a day or two, it will backfill the missing data if it is available. I am monitoring 2 stations, a station in Texas and a station in Bend, Oregon. We call this screen the stream view. There are a few things you can do. This button, Scale Data, allows you to change the amplitude of the data for that station. If it's a particularly quiet station, you can turn up the amplitude. If it's particularly noisy, you can turn it down. Since I'm displaying 2 stations, instead of seeing 24 hours of data, I'm only seeing 12 hours of data for each station. These buttons at the top allow us to move around in time. Or if you want to make a significant jump, you can use Go To Date. The goal today is to use the software tools to calculate distance, so I'm going to jump to the last big earthquake this station recorded. Both of these stations recorded the earthquake. There's some characteristics we can see. We can pick a first arrival. We can see the change in frequency. Right away, you know a few things about this earthquake. Was it really close to the station, or was it really far away? Because the waves are spread out, the arrivals are spread out, you can tell this was a pretty good distance away from both of these stations. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of the earthquake. I want to make sure I start my highlight about 5 minutes before I see the first arrival, and make sure I highlight all the way to the end of the earthquake. In this case, it's probably pretty close to 2 hours. At this point, I could save my extraction to a SAC file if I wanted to share it, but what I want to do is extract the earthquake. So I'm going to click on Extract Selection. This screen allows me to adjust my selection a little bit if I didn't quite grab enough record before the first arrival. So I can slide this out a little bit to make my final selection. When I'm happy with it, I can click OK. This loads the event view. This is where all the analysis tools are. The globes shows the station location in red, and the plate boundaries are color-coded as well. I can manipulate the globe in the same way you can manipulate Google Earth. So I can move it around, I can zoom in and out. The active trace is highlighted in blue. At this point, we only have 1 trace loaded. You can see the highlighted trace in this window to the right. Station information is listed, including the station name, the location, the latitude and longitude, the start time of the record, and what type of instrument recorded it. It has spots for distance and magnitude that we'll have to calculate, so let's go ahead and calculate distance. I can click on the Compute Distance button and the travel time computation window will open. In this window, you can move the extracted record around by clicking, holding, and dragging it. That is how we're going to determine distance. The first thing we want to do is turn on the travel time curves by toggling the Display Curves button. It starts by displaying the travel time curves for the P, S, and surface waves. You can toggle on additional curves, which can help you align the trace, or after you have it aligned, it might help explain some of the additional arrivals. You will notice that when I turned on the travel time curves, a red circle appeared on the globe. That red circle is representing the distance from the recording station the current position of the trace is. On the y-axis, you can see a distance. I increase the distance from the station by moving the trace up. The circle gets bigger. As I move the trace down and decrease the distance, the circle gets smaller. Our goal is to line up the arrivals with the travel time curves to determine a distance the earthquake occurred from the station. Once we have done that, the globe gives the students a visual of where the earthquake might have occurred. Before we calculate the distance this earthquake was from the recording station, I'm going to stop for 2 videos to describe and demonstrate where travel time curves come from and how they work.